Hello, Starshine. My name is Liz, and this is my channel, Simsational Stories. If you have not seen my videos before, and you enjoy this one, please like and subscribe, and maybe check out my other social media as well. I'm on both Facebook and Twitter. All relevant links are in the description below, and of course, if you're a Sims player and you'd like to download any of my characters, just search the hashtag Simsational Stories on the Sims 4 gallery. All original content is created by This Is Not Eric. Finally, before I begin my Simsational story, I'd like to issue this blanket content and trigger warning. The following story is just Sims, hey. I'm not going to apologise for treating them terribly, if that's what I've done. But I do want to assure you now that although I mean absolutely no harm, I completely understand if you feel unable to consume my content. Many loves, and we will catch each other on the internet elsewhere. Okay, so now we've gotten that over with. Let's go. Today's story is from Blanchard the Bachelor, and we're at chapter 4. If you have not seen previous chapters and would like to catch up, there are playlists available on my channel so you can hear the entire story in chronological order. The rest of us are going to move on from where we left off last time though. So without further ado, Blanchard Bridges considered himself to be single. He was Blanchard the Bartending Bachelor on social media these days, and the ladies loved it, and he loved the ladies. For the first time ever, Blanchard felt like he was #living his best life, and it was great. He lived by himself, worked for himself, and never wanted to be anything other than exactly that, by himself. Technically, Blanchard did have a girlfriend, Morgan Fires, but she was away at college and they barely ever saw each other. She was probably hooking up with other guys anyway. Blanchard was certainly hooking up with other girls. It would have been too hard otherwise. It was one thing to stick to one girl when she was nearby, but long distance? It was impossible. Blanchard was just too attractive for his own good, he told himself. It wasn't as if he chased the ladies, really. They kind of just came to him. They always had. He was tall, handsome, smart, funny, charming, and he had great hair. Even the way he walked had heads turning, and he knew it. Now that he had an apartment of his own in Evergreen Harbour and an easy gig bartending, he was set. It didn't take long after his move to Evergreen Harbour for Blanchard to truly begin to develop himself a bit of a Casanova habit and persona. He would take the girls out dancing first, using it as an acceptable excuse to pull them close and swing them breathlessly around the room between rounds of drinks. Blanchard was a good dancer and a great date. Blanchard may have wanted to live alone, but more often than not, he would not go home alone. He prided himself on his ability to talk a girl into talking him into bed. It wasn't enough for Blanchard to just seduce a woman. He wanted and needed for her to want to seduce him and think it was almost all her own idea. And all night long he would relentlessly, just barely, hold himself back from taking it too far. All this time, though, he would be teasing this woman, touching her lightly, smiling at her in just that certain way that let her know that he knew exactly what his touch was doing to her. They would spin around the room with their eyes locked and his breath on her neck, whispering soft words in her ear that promised to treat her right. Finally, at the end of the night, he would simply ask her, yes or no, did she want this? Invariably, the answer was almost always a heartfelt, breathless yes. At which point he would summon the cab he'd had on standby all night outside. He had no qualms about continually repeating this cycle with new women each time. They were all consenting adults who knew exactly what they were getting into. The best part of this routine was that 99% of the time, these hapless harlots would wake up happily at first, only to then slowly look up at the photos of Blanchard and his girlfriend Morgan on the wall that they had somehow been too distracted to notice the night before to see. And suddenly they were off. Blanchard got quite used to the righteous, outraged lectures and their threats to somehow dob him in to his beautiful, unsuspecting girlfriend. He never expected it to actually happen, though. Morgan was miles away in college. How are any of these women supposed to find her? He thought he was in the clear, but he'd bargained without the advent of social media. While once upon a time he could have got away with his antics, there were now thousands of bored sim women online just waiting for someone like Blanchard to grace their newsfeed with his nefarious doings. This he found out from an enraged and hurt Morgan when she came to catch him out at the club one night. She knew all about it. They'd compared notes, she and his previous partners, and the game was up. He couldn't even try to deny it. There were photos, pictures that these women had taken inside his apartment and posted online for her to see. She was disgusted with him. Morgan felt so stupid. Blanchard had been her exciting, mature, and sexy older man, whom she'd regularly bragged to her friends about. Those few scant months they had spent together between her high school graduation and the beginning of college had been so perfect, and now they felt tainted. How could he have brought other women there, to their home? Morgan was done with it, with him. She was worth so much more than this, and walked proudly out of his life that night, never to be seen again. Blanchard couldn't believe his luck. He had already been married once before, and although everything with Morgan had been fun at first, the longer it went on, the more frustrated he had been with all her endless expectations. Blanchard just didn't vibe with that kind of thing these days. He had left his ex-wife Greta behind while she was pregnant with their second child, and although she still sent him pictures each year, he had still never met his now 3-year-old daughter Roxanne, or seen his son Octavian since then. Greta was a schoolteacher who worked hard to support her family alone. She had only been 19 when she met Blanchard, and they had fallen pregnant and gotten married almost before they both knew it. She didn't blame him for leaving her and their marriage, although she did wish he was a better father to his children. They were such wonderful little people. Roxanne had been sickly as a baby and was still inclined to get sick a little more than other children her age, but she was a beautiful little girl whose quietly quirky and creative nature delighted those around her. Octavian was utterly devoted to her and his mother. Family was everything to him. That was why it was so very utterly devastating for him to come home to his mother Greta dead on the lounge room floor one day. A heart attack, the doctors told him later. Not that it mattered, really. Dead was dead. And Greta Bridges was definitely dead, leaving her and Blanchard's 2 children alone to raise themselves, unless Blanchard decided to come back to them. And that brings us to the end of Chapter 4 of Blanchard the Bachelor. If you've enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can tune in soon to hear the next chapter. And hey, maybe think about sharing my channel with a friend. Or don't. It's your life. Anyway, bye!